All right, everyone, ready to dive into some seriously cool English. We're talking phrasal verbs today, and let me tell you, these things are everywhere.
Absolutely. They're like the secret sauce to sounding truly fluent.
Right. Like you can say look, or you can look something up. Totally different vibe.
Exactly. It's about adding those subtle shades of meaning that you just can't get with single words. And the best way to really grasp these, through stories.
Which is why we're hanging out with Carmen today. She's a school secretary, loves her job, but she's got a tough decision to make.
Classic work-life balance dilemma, right? More hours means more money, but also less time for herself or her family.
Tough spot to be in. So, phrasal verbs. I'll admit, they used to make me kind of nervous. All those prepositions flying around.
I get it, they can seem intimidating at first, but think of it like this. You've got your basic verb, like stand, right?
Okay, stand. Got it.
Now, tack on a preposition or adverb. Stand up to, stand for, stand out. Suddenly, a whole world of meaning opens up.
And that's where it gets tricky, right? Because the same verb with a different preposition can mean something totally different. Talk about confusing.
That's the beauty of language, though. It's all about context. And that's what Carmen's story is so perfect for this.
Because we see those phrasal verbs in action playing out in her everyday life.
Exactly. It's like a masterclass in how to actually use them. For instance, remember Carmen's dilemma. Her principal wants her to sign up for more hours.
Sign up, all right. That one seems pretty straightforward, like signing your name on a list, right? Committing to something.
Exactly. But notice how the meaning can shift depending on how you use it. You can ask, are you signed up for the potluck? Or you can say, I think I'll sign up for that yoga class.
Wow, so many possibilities with just one phrasal verb.
See, it's all about those subtle nuances. And speaking of nuances, Carmen's thinking about signing up for more work, but on the other hand, she really values her time off. She loves to sleep in on the weekends.
Now that's a phrasal verb I can get behind. Who doesn't love a good sleep in? Although I'm more of a sleep off kind of person, especially after a long week.
You mean you need to sleep off all that stress and exhaustion?
100%. Wait a minute, are you connecting this back to Carmen's dilemma? Like, more hours might mean more money, but less time for those lazy sleep-in mornings.
You're catching on quickly. It's all connected, isn't it? It's that constant push and pull. Do we sign up for more? Knowing it might mean sacrificing those precious moments of rest and relaxation.
It's a tough one, for sure. But it sounds like Carmen's got a good head on her shoulders. Like she knows how to stand up for herself when she needs to.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, the story uses the phrase stand up to when describing how she handles a particularly demanding parent.
I can only imagine. Parents can be, well, let's just say it takes a certain kind of person to deal with those situations gracefully.
Right. And it would have been easy for Carmen to just cave, but instead she stands up to this parent. But here's the thing, she does it while remaining calm and respectful. It reminded me of that whole firm but fair approach.
Finding that balance, yeah, it's not always easy.
Not at all. And speaking of standing your ground, there's another phrasal verb that comes to mind. Stand up for.
Wait, so you have stand up to and stand up for. They seem pretty similar. Is there really a big difference?
You're right to point that out. There is a difference. Stand up to is more about directly confronting someone, like in Carmen's situation with that parent. But stand up for implies more of a defense of something you believe in. Could be yourself, could be others.
So when Carmen's advocating for her students, that's standing up for them.
You got it. The story even makes a connection to that Bob Marley lyric. Get up for your rights.
Man, that's such a perfect fit for Carmen. She seems like she might actually listen to Bob Marley on her commute.
Now, wouldn't that be something? But it got me thinking about other examples of standing up for what's right, like the DARE program.
Oh man, the nostalgia. Just say no. They drilled that into our heads.
For sure, and while people might debate how effective it actually was, the core message was about empowering young people to stand up for themselves, to stand up for what they believed in, even when everyone else was saying or doing something different.
So Carmen's like the embodiment of that DARE spirit in her daily life, not afraid to make her voice heard. Now, the story uses stand in a few other cool ways too. Stand for and stand out, for example.
Those are great ones. And they both have very distinct meanings. Like when we say stand for, we're often talking about what something represents. Think acronyms.
Okay, so what does PTA stand for?
Exactly. Parent-Teacher Association, which, by the way, Carmen is super involved in.
Well, naturally. She's like the poster child for community involvement. But stand out, now that one feels a bit more, subjective maybe? What does it actually mean for someone to stand out?
It's about being exceptional, noticeable, but in a good way. Like the story says that Carmen stands out as an employee, meaning she goes above and beyond, consistently exceeds expectations.
So not just good, but outstanding.
There you go. And it's interesting how we actually get the word outstanding from stand out.
Whoa, I never made that connection before. That's so cool. It's like one little phrasal verb can unlock a whole chain reaction of other words and meanings.
Totally. And speaking of subtle connections, the story actually contrasts stand out with stick out, which can be both literal and figurative.
Okay, now you've got my attention. Break it down for me.
All right, picture a bunch of pencils. You might say, that red pencil sticks out because of its color. It's literally poking out, more noticeable.
Got it. That makes sense. So what about the figurative use?
Think of those same pencils, but this time, one's sharpened on the wrong end. You can say it sticks out because it's different. Not necessarily in a good way this time. Or like, his attitude really stuck out in that group. Noticeable, but maybe for the wrong reasons.
That's a good distinction to make. So stand out is about positive attention, while stick out can be a little more ambiguous. This is what I love about these deep dives. You pick up on all these little details of language that you might not even think about otherwise.
That's what we're here for. And trust me, those details make all the difference. But before we get too sidetracked, let's loop back to Carmen. What's resonating with you most about her story?
You know, it's amazing how one little story about a school secretary can be so packed with linguistic gold. It's like a masterclass in phrasal verbs, all wrapped up in one relatable experience.
Isn't it something? It reminds us that language isn't just about memorizing rules from a textbook. It's about how people actually use it in their lives.
To tell stories?
To share their experiences, to connect with each other.
It really makes you appreciate the power of a good story, you know? All these phrasal verbs, they just come alive when you see them in action like that.
Absolutely. And think about it. We've covered sign up, sleep in, slap off, stand up to, stand up for, even stand for and stand out, stick out. It all ties back to Carmen.
It's wild, right? Because she's not some fictional character. She's a school secretary. It just goes to show you, these phrasal verbs, they're not just some fancy grammar trick. They're everywhere.
Totally. They're how we actually speak, how we express ourselves in those everyday moments.
Exactly. It's like the more you know, the more you can say, right? You've got all these tools at your disposal to really get your point across.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
So as we wrap things up here, what's sticking with you? What are you walking away with from Carmen's story?
Honestly, I think it's that balance she's found. Like, she stands up for herself and what she believes in, but she also knows when to sleep in, when to step back and recharge. It's inspiring, you know? You don't have to choose between being strong and taking care of yourself.
Such a good point. And you know what I find fascinating? These little phrasal verbs, people might dismiss them as informal or whatever, but they actually reveal so much about who we are, what we value.
It's like they add this whole other dimension to our communication, you know? They bring that human touch.
100%. So, for everyone listening, what resonated with you? What phrasal verbs are going to stick with you? Keep an ear out for them in your everyday life. You'll be surprised how often they pop up.
And hey, if you hear any good ones, let us know. We're always down for another deep dive. Until next time.
Thank you for joining us today on English Learning Podcast. I want to congratulate you for taking the time to improve your English. Every step counts, so keep moving forward and don't stop. If you enjoyed this content and want to learn more, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button so we can keep creating videos like this. Let us know in the comments what level of English you're at and what topics you'd like us to cover in the next episode. Also, check out the links in the description for additional resources to help you keep advancing. See you in the next video. And remember, English Learning Podcast is here to help you reach your English goals. Keep learning.